All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another Pittsburgh Steelers post-game press conference. Steelers are not winners in this game. They lose to the New England Patriots 17-14, following the same script from a year ago, where they go on the road, have a big win in week 1, come back home in week 2, and lay an egg. Bryan Davis will be joining us shortly, but joining me right now, Dave Schofield. What's going on, Dave?
Lay an egg. Yeah. Not a fun one to watch.
No.
Honestly, are they ever really fun to watch if the score doesn't end up in the right place at the end of the game? Yeah.
I can at least say a game could be entertaining.
Yes.
This was not entertaining.
No.
This was frustrating. This is I think that's the perfect word to use in the title of my game recap podcast was in offensive ineptitude.
Yeah.
And I think that perfectly describes the Steelers offense right now. And look, this is the cleansing period. I've often said that me, Dave, Bryan, everyone else on our podcast network, the fact that we have microphones in front of our faces, this is therapeutic for us. When the Steelers suffer a disappointing loss, us talking about it, we get it. You that are watching live on YouTube or Facebook, you will have your chance to air your grievances, so to speak. And so we'll keep that in check. We're going to go through the game like we always do. Win, lose, or draw. We're going to look at the stats. But we always start with knee-jerk reaction. So, Dave, what was your knee-jerk reaction after this loss?
Well, it's interesting. It's kind of what I said to you as I was sitting on your couch. I also then felt the same way at listening to Coach Tomlin in his press conference. There are two types of teams. There are proactive teams and there are reactive teams. Proactive teams go out there and say, hey, we are the alpha dog. You're going to have to change to adapt to us because we're just better than you. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not have that mentality right now. They are a reactive team. Everything that Coach Tomlin said, or almost everything that he said in his press conference, when still wasn't saying much, was reactive. Oh, why weren't you working the deep middle of the field? Well, they have a good safety. That's you reacting to them. You're not saying, hey, that safety's still got to make plays against us because we can do this and we can do that. If you're going to be a reactive team, these are the types of games you're going to lose.
That's a great way to put it. And if you listen to Mike Tomlin's post-game press conference, everything that he said revolved around, like you said, the reaction to the other team. I understand you have to adjust. You have to make adjustments. But at the same time, if you feel like you have skill position players that can make plays, then you say, hey, whether it's George Pickens, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, we're going to challenge your single high safety look by doing this. It just didn't seem like the Steelers did that. And we'll get to that throughout the course of this podcast. I want to remind everyone listening, whether you're listening on our audio platform, which thank you for finding us on our audio side. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, you can find us in so much more than just these type of podcasts on our audio platform. All you have to do is search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, subscribe and follow, and you can get all of our podcasts, which is so much more. So make sure you check that out. My knee-jerk reaction was, I hate this offense, and I'm starting to figure out what exactly is wrong with it. And it's been since 2018, in my opinion, that we, the fan base, has seen anything that even resembles actual good offensive football for a duration of time. 2019, we know Ben Roethlisberger was marred by injury, and he was lost in week 2 against Seattle at home. 2020 was that dink and dunk offense that, yes, they started 11-0, but we know how they finished. They couldn't run the football. We know what last year looked like, and this year is picking up right where last year left off. It is frustrating. But we're going to talk about this, and I think as we go through the stats and we talk about, especially on the offensive side of the ball, we as a fan base can start to pinpoint issues within this team, or maybe issue, singular. We'll talk about it. We'll get that all taken care of. Kyle Smith gives us $5. Thank you for the tip. He says, Trubisky throwing dump-offs, even with perfect protection, throws off his back foot too much. Bring in Pickett. Also, Steelers are now 0-5 without TJ Watt lifetime.
Is that lifetime? I know when he sat out, I know between last year and this year now that they have not won a game without him.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look even before that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I can definitely confirm that with the games he missed last year, the Steelers didn't win any of them where he was out. Oh, yeah.
His presence or lack thereof was noticeable. We'll put it that way. You could definitely tell that there was no TJ Watt in this game. The guy's the defensive player of the year last year. I mean, this isn't just some
No.
street. This isn't like, okay, we got to deal without Bud Dupree, even when Bud Dupree was here. And Bud Dupree was a good player. But if Bud Dupree missed a game, no one said, oh, man, this guy, I don't know what they're going to do. When you miss TJ Watt, you're missing a defensive player of the year. It's a big difference. Go ahead, Dave. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say there was a comment around that. I was reading that super chat before we go, and then someone else said in a comment, it's something I did not realize. So no matter what, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still going to be in first place in the FC North after week 2.
Yes.
I did not I listened to the Mike Tomlin press conference on my way home. I then was listening to that putrid purple team lose. Yes. I had no idea that the Jets came back and won.
Cleveland gave up a last second. It looked like Joe Flacco to Torrey Smith back at Heinz Field when they threw that last set. Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to find a silver lining, there's your silver lining, and that's all I got.
Screw the silver lining. Yeah, this offense sucks. This offense sucks. And Isaac Aguilar, longtime listener of the podcast, gives us $5. Thank you very much, Isaac. He said, I don't want to overreact, but got to get rid of Mitch. So let's start talking about the offense. And we always start here. I don't want fans that maybe just are tuning in for the first time saying, of course, they're going to start at the quarterback. We always start with the quarterback. Go back to when we talked about Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. It was always the first thing that we discussed. So let's talk about Mitch Trubisky. He finishes 21 of 33, throws for 168 yards, a 5.1 average. He did throw a touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. He was intercepted once. He was sacked 3 times for 16 yards for a 73.8 rating. Those 3 sacks, though, I have to say, 2 of them were not on the offensive line.
No.
It is infuriating.
Furious about that. So, I mean, even that infuriates me, and you're even more furious about it than I get. So
yeah, I feel bad for the offensive line because they get beat up repeatedly, especially by the beat reporters of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just keep digging and digging on this line, and I'm thinking, this guy's not helping them at all, at least with the narrative and the storylines. That's just me.
And also, not only was that bad for the line, the one was when there were 13 seconds left in the half.
Yep.
And you decide to roll out and run for the sidelines and take 10 seconds on a play. You've got 17 seconds to get into field goal range. You can't use 10 seconds on a play that you're not even going to gain any yards. Throw it away, stop the clock, and not gain any yards. What are you thinking in that moment? That one, to me, that one was the one that bothered me the most of any of the sacks. But and then the other one was, what was the other one?
I don't, Dave, let's just stop it for a second because you brought up that play.
Yeah.
This guy is not a rookie.
No.
And even if you are a rookie, high school kids are taught to throw the ball away in that situation. You can't take a sack. You got to throw it away. He's out of the pocket. There's no intentional grounding threat or anything like that. This is not the first time he has done this. I cannot wrap my head around what this veteran quarterback, okay, this is his 6th year in the league. Why in the world he would ever even he's done this since the preseason. And I was furious then too.
Yeah.
I don't get it. We have some super chats. Let's get these up here first, Dave. Permanent Pictures gives us $4.99 and says Mitch is worse than old Ben. Ben could read defenses when he had time and still clutch up. Mitch is booty. And that's what he said. Those are no their words, not mine. Okay, let's get Tom Muir gives us $5. I've seen enough of Mitch. No killer instinct in either game so far. Why keep Kenny on the bench if the most important player isn't, quote unquote, the guy? Okay, and then we have, let me see if I can find the other one. Here we go. Knight Rider 16 gives us $5. Says, could Mitch be better? Sure, but a lot of these passes are by design. We heard Canada needed a mobile quarterback. What plays have we ran that requires that? And that's a good point as well. That's a very valid point in terms of the offensive scheme in Matt Canada. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, because there's a lot of different things. I know I was frustrated at first on the 3rd and 8 when they threw the ball to Najee Harris a yard past the line of scrimmage. But then someone who was in stadium reporting for the Steelers, several different people said, hey, Chase Claypool and Dante Johnson ran into each other and, would have been the number one. Deontay was probably the number one option, but because they ran into each other, why are you running? You know what I'm saying? That's just got to be better execution. And you could still chalk that up to maybe play calling. The one I brought up to you was, it was 2nd and 4. And instead of throwing it 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage with Deontay Johnson running across the field, which I think he still would have ran for the first down, they decided to throw it 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage to Najee Harris. All you had to do was watch Mitch. Watch Mitch, and you knew where he was throwing the ball the majority of the time just by watching him drop back. That play that people thought would have been DPI on the wheel route to Najee Harris, which actually was good defense because they didn't touch him. It's not like they tackled him before the ball got there. He watched him. He stared him down the whole time. These are things that you would, maybe you expect that from a rookie quarterback, but not from your veteran. But at the same time, I'm still in the camp of when the Steelers decide it's time to make a change, I am 100% behind it to make the change, because I'm also not sure, are they asking Mitch to do these kind of things? And if they are, shame on them. Or is he just doing them? Someone's going to throw somebody under the bus at some point. If I was Mitch Trubisky and this is what they're asking me to do, I would throw my coach under the bus. And if the quarterback's just not playing, Matt Canada will throw him under the bus if he has to, if he's just not doing the stuff the way it's being called. Eventually, we might actually figure this out. But I would not put up, if that's what he's being told to do, I wouldn't put up with it, because it's obviously not working.
Wilson Pava gives us $4.99, says, Mitch reminds me of Charlie Batch. He's a great backup, capable of winning some games, but overall nothing more than a caretaker long-term. That to me right now, that sounds like a diss of Charlie Batch.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie Batch played better in black and gold so far than
Mitch
Trubisky has in regular season play.
Tyler W. gives us $2. Says Mitch did place the ball nicely on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, it's not like every play is terrible.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, but let's go back to something that you said, and you were talking about, is this, and a lot of people are going after Matt Canada, and I understand that. That's kind of like by proxy. Have you ever, Dave, run, even in high school, even if JV, scout team, I don't care. Have you ever told your players, okay, it's 3rd and 8. You have no option but to throw it to this guy? Ever? Like no other option. I don't care if the entire defense.
A play call that at least gets the majority of my receivers down.
I'm saying this for a reason, because some people are saying, okay, it's not Mitch's fault that he throws to Jalen Warren for a no gain check down on a 3rd and 8. And they're like, oh, Canada sucks. Well, wait a second. Is Matt Canada telling him, hey, is he in the headset right now? Mitch, we got 3rd and 8. You have to throw it to Warren right now. No other options. No, he's not saying that.
I'm going to say this specifically about that play because I didn't think of it at the time because I didn't realize where they were on the field. That was also one of those plays of, if you're not going to get the first down, try to get a little bit of yardage because we're already over 50 for the field goal. It didn't really matter. What he threw it to Jalen Warren on that one. Did he gain a yard or was it no gain? No, I'm not even sure. And Boz knocks through the long field goal. So sometimes I understand if you're looking at when you're at the edge of field goal range, but that really should not have even been the mindset on that play either, because you were, you can't take the sack. That's one thing you couldn't do for sure, but you can't take the sack or else you're going to take yourself out of field goal range. But my goodness, sometimes it feels like, yes, the defense is going to defend the sticks. So sometimes in order to try to make the play, you got to throw well in front or well beyond. That's how it is sometimes. But once again, it goes right back to what I started everything with. So Bryan can hear my rant again. It's about being proactive versus reactive. We're going to throw what the defense gives us. Well, when the defense gives you, when it's 3rd and 12 and the defense is going to give you the little out route I'm thinking of the one when they were pinned back on the punt where they were around the 10-yard line. They took what the defense gave them on 3rd down, but they gave you something that you weren't going to get a first down with. You can't do that. Sometimes you have to push it. You've got to push the envelope. And it's almost like they were waiting for their final possession to push the envelope. And they were expecting they were going to get one more because they gave the ball up with 6.5 minutes left, and they never got one.
Yeah. So if you were someone and you were in the Kenny Pickett, you were on the Kenny Pickett bandwagon and you were saying that this guy should start in week 1, and it didn't happen. We saw it. We all know what happened. Then you knew that the only way that you were going to see Kenny Pickett this season was if bad things happened. An injury to Mitch Trubisky, or he looks like crap, and they want to make a change. And so far, it's the latter. And that's not good for the team. it's the fastest way you'll get Kenny Pickett out there, which, by the way, I don't think putting him in there on a short week is the smartest move.
No, you can't do that this week. You can't make his first start be that. You
if
can't.
Anything,
unless you were planning for it last week and you were prepping for it the whole time.
Which they did not do.
Which they did. Yeah. I'm sure they did.
So the best case scenario, if you're a Kenny Pickett fan and you want Kenny Pickett in the game, is if Trubisky still looks bad in Cleveland on Thursday night, they get a little bit longer break and then they make the change after that. But we welcome Bryan Davis into the show. Bryan, we're talking quarterbacks, as you can tell. What was your thoughts on Mitch Trubisky's Week 2 game?
Quite simply, gentlemen, I'm not going to mince any words. Mitch Trubisky lost this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers with his decision-making in a few different aspects of this game. Taking a sack by losing about 13, 14 seconds on one play, just doing a lot of things. I thought that he did not even see a lot of open receivers. If you covered this already, I do apologize. But one thing that I noticed when we were watching the game together, I've always wanted to say that, by the way. So one thing that I noticed, that we're talking about all these guys that are open, and I brought up something that I've talked about for 25 years when I used to talk about Cordell Stewart, because one of the problems with Cordell Stewart was the fact that he had it in his mind, I'm going to this receiver here. I'm going to option number 1, and he looked at option number 1, did not have the peripheral vision or the peripheral thought to look elsewhere. And there were times when Deontay Johnson was wide open, Pickens was wide open, and he'd go to that number 1 option, and that is a problem. I also made a mention that I thought that Mitch plays a little manic. That might not be as bad as the fact that he's not seeing the entire field, and that's going to kill you here.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's get a couple super chats here. Permanent Pictures gives us another $4.99. Says Flacco hung 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on the Browns. Let's see what Mitch does.
That's a great point.
No, I'm not saying that Mitch shouldn't play, and I want to make that very clear. Like, I'm not saying that.
Mitch has to play this week, as we said. With it being the short week, you really can't make that change unless injury forces it into you.
Right. Let's get Oral Richards gives us 10 Canuck bucks. I believe that's what it is. Canadian dollars. It makes no sense to be middle of the road and accomplish nothing. Play Kenny, see where you are this year, then find out next year, 2 years wasted. I definitely see that thought process. And that is, and I've said this since the start of the season. Tell me one thing that Mitch Trubisky does that Kenny Pickett can't do, at least right now from the offense that we've seen in 2 weeks. And like Dave said last week, when I brought up the same question, posed the same question, unless Mitch has the grasp of the entire playbook and Kenny doesn't, which we don't know that for fact or fiction, I can't see anything that Trubisky does that you can't say, okay, Kenny Pickett, get out there and let's get you some experience. Dave, what do you have to say? Anything?
Okay, I could not disagree with that more. I cannot stand the whole notion of and see what they can do. This is the National Football League, and this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This isn't let's put people out there and see what they can do. You make that call. I'm not saying the whole comment's wrong. I just don't like that phrase of, oh, let's see what they – and I see it all the time, and it drives me nuts. You don't put them out there to see what they can do. You put them out there when they're your best option going forward, and that's what you have to be considering now. That should be the reasoning behind it, not let's see what they can do. I just don't like that phrase.
Bryan, any comments or any final thoughts on the quarterback?
Absolutely. The one thing that I'm thinking about here, and we've talked about this, they're protecting Kenny Pickett for another week, especially, Jeff, you just said about a short week. This is a protection package from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're at least going at the least, they're giving Mitch Trubisky 3 weeks. Now, be careful what you wish for, because if you want Kenny Pickett in there bad enough, then the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to lose next week. If Mitch Trubisky starts, that's what, and is terrible, that's what's going to happen. And he's going to start. That's how you're going to get Kenny Pickett, but you're going to have to sacrifice another loss and go down to 1-2. That's exactly what's going to happen, because unless he sucks next week, Kenny Pickett's not coming in. So if the Steelers win and Mitch looks good enough to get them the win, they're not making a change. They're going to make a change when it's a dire situation. Back in 2002 in week 3, they finally pulled Cordell Stewart in favor of Tommy Maddox. I'm on a Cordell Stewart kick, I guess. And they brought Tommy Maddox in. He came back and won the game. But that was after a while of wondering if Cordell Stewart was the right guy and was the final straw. And they found the right replacement for him. They tried to replace him before with Kent Graham. Didn't work. So they finally found the replacement. So you've got to realize that they're playing this. At the beginning of the season, the beginning of the regular season and preseason, they said, okay, we'll try to get Mitch through the whole season. If he doesn't get through the whole season, maybe if things are bad at the bye, we go with Kenny. I heard you guys say stuff like that. But at the earliest, we kind of knew it would be week 4 against the Jets, because if you're going to bring in Kenny Pickett against anybody, you bring him in against the Jets. And like Jeff just said, and like Dave said before, you don't throw him in there on a short week against Cleveland, in Cleveland.
Well, I will say this before I bring up Tyler W's comment here for a super chat, and that is players are starting to get frustrated, and it's only week 2. George Pickens has been visibly frustrated on multiple times after the 2 3-and-outs in the fourth quarter. Deontay Johnson was visibly frustrated to the point that he was asked about it by reporters after the game. He said, I need to control my emotions better. These players, I mean, it's early. It is early, and they are showing some serious frustration with what's going on. To me, maybe it's because Roethlisberger's not there, and you figure out that, in that time period, Ben will figure it out, and they'll get it going. I don't know about this team and this offense right now. That's very fragile. We'll put it that way. But let's get Tyler W's comment up here. $5. Thank you very much. He said, not to disagree with Bad, but I think Gunnar lost the game. Mitch did nothing to win the game. That turnover changed momentum. We will talk about Gunnar Olszewski's botched punt for sure. We've just been spending the majority of time on the quarterback position, rightfully so. Yeah. Wilson Pava gives us $1.99. Said, surprised there's no Kenny package yet. I'm sure that it's there. I have a feeling it's probably in the works, if not already sustained. Tom Muir gives us $5. Cincinnati is currently down 14-3. What is the downside to playing Kenny if we're going to be good? If we aren't going to be good with Mitch? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's what you have to weigh out here, and this is what the coaching staff has to do. The coaching staff, to give a Dave answer, the Steelers thought that Mitch Trubisky gave them the best chance to win, and so they went with him, captain, starter. At some point, if you find that you think, okay, maybe this guy gives us a better chance to win, then you make the move. And they're going to have to see how it plays out. If it continues down this path, I'll ask you this as we move away from the quarterback talk and go to the other parts of the team. If Mitch Trubisky's play continues down this road, do you see him, if he stays healthy, being the starter for the whole season? Dave, I'll ask you first.
Based on today, you can't see him as a starter for the whole season. Okay. But you can't settle for what it's been so far. You can't settle for that for 17 games.
So
it's got to improve. The standard you expect right now to make a change is lower than what the standard would need to be later to make a change, because you have that expectation of improvement. So in other words, the standard of what he's got to do is going to keep getting higher. He's already at a point that not too far down the road, he's not up to that level. And some people would say maybe it's up to that now, but it would take a really, really bad performance to have made the change in the first 2 weeks. And it wasn't that bad, but it's also not good enough that it's going to sustain him through 6 games. It's not that either.
Bryan, same question. And that is, if Mitch Trubisky's play continues at this level, do you ever foresee them just continuing to trot this out for 17 games?
Absolutely not. No, they're not going to do it. They already have their backup plan. They already know that if this isn't working the way they want it, that Kenny Pickett is coming in. But they're going to make sure that they get everything. They know everything they need to know about Mitch Trubisky before they bench Mitch Trubisky. And if it's based on last week, there's no way that you bench him. If it's based on this week, you're like, all right, we're not going to bench him yet, but we've got to make sure that if this happens again, then we're seriously going to consider it. But right now, the way Mike Tomlin was in his press conference, he was throwing guys under the bus, not by name, but by position. But he wasn't throwing Mitch. The only thing that he would say is, we've got to make plays, including our quarterback.
And that's his way of, yeah. Okay, let's get some super chats here. Suave Al gives us $5. Says Mitch quarterback Suave, yeah. Mitch quarterback mechanics are on a high school level. He can't go through his progressions. He can't go through his reads. Can't look off a defense and stares at the number one wide receiver.
Does he mean by throwing off his back foot on almost every throw?
Yeah, then that was something that someone else said.
That's what he's saying, then I'm not disagreeing with that.
One of my Twitter followers, my Ride or Die crew, they pointed that out, and I watched it, and I was like, holy cow, they're right. He never drives into any throws. He's always throwing off his back foot. It's really weird. Knight Rider gives us $5. Knight Rider 16. Let me be specific. He said, how do they go right down the field when they went no huddle? It looked familiar. You can't run a no huddle offense the entire game. And that's the only problem.
Well,
I'm assuming you're
isn't
talking
that called
about
the Big 12, right?
I don't know. Tanya McBride gives us $1.99. Says, I don't see Pickens doing much until Pickett plays. Yeah, I mean, Pickens is that's the real head scratcher to me. He's definitely a guy that you could at least use to stretch the field. I don't know. We can't spend the entire podcast talking about the quarterback as much as I would love to. I'll be talking about that a lot on my Let's Ride podcast. I'm sure others will be talking about it as well. Let's go to the rest of the offense, and let's talk about the running game. Najee Harris, 15 carries for 49 yards, a 3.3 average. Gunnar Olszewski had the longest run of the day for 18 yards on one jet sweep. Jalen Warren, 4 for 15. Trubisky, 1 for 7. Derek Watt, 1 for 2 for a first down. They total 22 carries, 91 yards, a 4.1 average. Gentlemen, let's talk about the running game. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, we didn't even see Derek Watt's carry because CBS thought it was more important to show Robert Kraft than the actual play going on. So I only complained about that 6 times at your house. So I had to make it an even 7 here.
Second only to the Wildcat in 2019 with the Buffalo Bills.
That was at least it wasn't 5 hours like I had in the snow.
My thing when it comes to the Steelers, it wasn't bad. They were over 4 yards a carry again. Not when I say again, it wasn't that last week when I look at it. But when it came to the running backs were 2.3 last week for their carries. That was better this week coming from the running back position. It's not that the run game, I thought it was overall more successful runs than they had the previous week. It just the whole off it almost seems like it has to be so much that it has to carry the offense that they're going to have to run so much that they don't pass. And that's not going to be the case either. I know some people are still really harping on the offensive line. The offensive line did not stand out to me in a bad way in this game. There was plenty of other things that stood out that was a negative. And to me, the offensive line was not one of them. Yeah, you had a false start penalty, which wasn't anywhere close to as bad as the one they didn't call on New England in the first half. And you also had, I saw a play one time where a guy came flying through on a bad play, but you're not going to have perfect plays all the time. But the offensive line was there. They did not seem to be the issue. And to me, maybe the offensive line struggling throughout the preseason clouded the other issues that were actually the bigger issues that now we're seeing.
All right, Brian, what do you think about the running game?
I thought the running game was much better. I thought if they took advantage of some of those situations on the passing side, that you would have seen a lot more opportunities to run and close it out, kind of like New England had at the end of that game. I'm not as worried about the running game this week. I'm more worried about the passing game now. Thought the running game was good. I thought the offensive line, if I was giving the offensive line a grade, I'd probably give them a C+, with the arrow pointing up.
Yeah. I mean, so running game was what it is, 4.1. I always look for north of 4 yards per carry as a good watermark. They did not hit 100 yards total, but still not bad. Let's talk about the offensive line. We talked about how they surrendered 3 sacks. 2 of them, I believe, were ones where we're sitting there saying that's not on the offensive line. Like, they're doing their job. Let's talk about the offensive line more specifically here. Do you like the way they're heading, or do you think that, it's just kind of lipstick on a pig at this point? Dave, go with you.
Okay, you said the offensive line, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and then this is all facets: run blocking, pass blocking, everything.
I want to see this line coming together a little bit more every game, and I felt that they played better this game than last game, and I felt that last game they played better than they did in the final 2 games of the preseason. So you want that to be trending in the right direction. So I'm not dumping a bunch of stuff on the offensive line here. I think that there was other parts of the game that really weren't coming through.
Bryan, do you agree with Dave or do you disagree?
I agree with Dave. I was fine with the offensive line. If I'm pointing fingers, we've already done it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the pass catchers. I think that's important. But before we do that, let's get Grayson Brown, gives us $5. And I would like to see more growth from the running back position, especially Najee. He looked a bit choppy, could benefit from cuts, patience, and hitting the holes. I will say this. This was the first time this season, including the preseason, where I felt like Najee Harris actually showed a little bit of explosion. He showed a little bit of speed. Now, he probably would admit that he probably missed a couple holes. But other than that, I thought that Najee Harris looked like he was kind of rounding into form.
I thought he got better as the game went on.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, the guy missed all of training camp essentially from the first padded practice on. He played sparingly, if at all, in the preseason, not much. He gets beat up again in week 1 in Cincinnati, doesn't finish the game. It's going to take some time for him and the offensive line. I know no one wants to hear that, but I think I agree with what you're saying, Grayson. I think that there are some parts of his game that look rusty. But I think overall he's on the right track, just like the offensive line.
Do you guys want, before we move on to the receivers, because this kind of comes more with the running game and stuff.
Go for it.
Here's the bad stat of the game. You know this is going to come on the by the numbers article. Pittsburgh Steelers time of possession in the second half, 9 minutes and 1 second.
Oh.
They were winning the time of possession in the first half and ended up losing in the game because they got more than doubled up in the second half.
Yeah, and you talk about the fourth quarter. I mean, if you were to narrow it down to the fourth quarter, it'd be even worse, I bet.
I could possibly do that.
If you narrow down,
because think about it, how many offensive plays did they run in the fourth quarter? 7. They had a touchdown to start it and 2 3 and outs. That's all they had. So if you look, I'm trying to see, sometimes it doesn't always do it very well when you go 2 minutes and 41 seconds in the fourth quarter.
Defense was, you could tell the defense was gassed in the second half, and they were rotating guys. It just wasn't matter. Let's get to the pass catcher zone, wrap up the offense. Deontay Johnson leads the Steelers, 6 catches for 57 yards on 10 targets. He did have that great 2-point conversion play. Najee Harris had 5 catches for 40 yards, so he is on the cusp. Let's see, rushing for 49. Oh, he's close. 89 total yards for Najee Harris. He had 6 targets. Chase Claypool was 4 catches for 26 yards on 6 targets. George Pickens had 1 catch on 3 targets for 23 yards. Freiermuth, 4 for 22 on 7 targets. And Jaylen Warren, 1 catch, no yards, 1 target. They totaled 168 yards, 21 catches, and 1 touchdown with a long of 23 yards. Gentlemen, what do you think about the Steelers pass catchers? Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, the overall passing offense, the 3 words come to mind: not good enough. I don't know that I'm putting any of that or much of that on the pass catchers.
Okay. Bryan?
Absolutely what Dave said. I thought the pass catchers were getting open. I made a comment about Chase Claypool, how he has matured as a receiver. You threw in the fact that he was matured as a person. I think he looks in his 3rd year like a leader out there. You could tell the frustration on George Pickens. You could see what Muth gets when he gets the ball thrown to him. How many targets did he get again? 4?
Muth? Hold on, I got it.
Freiermuth, he had 7.
That's not enough for a guy like him. Really isn't. I got to tell you, Deontay Johnson does great things. Right now, it goes back to what I've been saying just today. I haven't been on this completely, but today I'm saying that the quarterback lost this game. The receivers did not, the running backs did not, and on this side of the ball, the offensive line did not.
Is that bold statement factual to you, Dave? I'm trying to think about that. What Bryan just said, that this game was lost by the quarterback. Now, I'm not talking about like the gunner Olszewski. I'm saying offensive ineptitude, which is the way I described it in the article.
On offense, yes.
So if you're going the 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams, the offense, I would put the blame on this one on the quarterback.
Okay. Fair enough.
Of players on the field. Is it
Yeah.
the scheme? Is it the philosophy? Or as I say, the whole idea of being reactive rather than proactive?
Right.
I'm not even looking at that. I'm saying based on the players on the field, this came down to what wasn't good enough today was the quarterback play.
All right. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, which wasn't too much better, I guess. Mac Jones, we'll talk about him first. He finishes 21 of 35, 252 yards, a 7.2 average, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, should have been 2. Cam Sutton dropped the other one. Was not sacked once. 0 sacks of statue Mac Jones and 79.7 rating. I wasn't overly impressed with the second-year quarterback out of Alabama. But let's talk about the Steelers' pass defense while we're bringing up the passer for the Patriots. Pass defenses, 5. 5 pass defenses, only 3 quarterback hits. Tyson Alualu with 1, Alex Highsmith with 1, and Malik Reed with 1, and 0 sacks. We want to talk about Mitch Trubisky. I think the lack of a pass rush or anything consistent or looking like a pass rush was noticeable, or it's one of those situations where you just needed a big play, a sack, a negative play, and it rarely, if ever, happened. Dave, what do you think about the Steelers? I guess you could throw the pass rush in with the secondary. Let's just get it all out there while we're here.
Well, the pass rush, they didn't get home. So it's easy to say that wasn't good enough. But I will make the note again, whether you like PFF or not is the measuring stick for this. But when you look at teams at team scores, the New England Patriots were the number 2 pass blocking offense after week 1 of the NFL. So you knew that they were a good pass blocking team. You take away the defensive player of the year and how they scheme things otherwise. I'm not the fact they didn't get home at all to the quarterback. I'm not shocked. It's not like, oh my goodness, they were playing this terrible if that's the case, then they wouldn't have been number 2 before this game. So but you still got to do everything you can to get home. This was about the splash, and there was really only one splash offensive play that killed the Steelers, and that was inside of 2 minutes of the first half of Witherspoon trying to body catch the ball, wait for it to drop down into his breadbasket rather than going up and getting it, and the receiver went over the top and went up high and got the ball and got the touchdown. That's really. That ends up being a huge play in the game. So it wasn't good enough, but it's not like I'm saying it was terrible. If they won the game and you don't have a play like that, then it's a whole different story.
Bryan, what do you think about the defensive effort?
They were gassed, like you said. The defense, my gosh, the defense was on that field so much in the third and fourth quarter. They did not have help from their offense whatsoever, especially the reason I'm harping on the quarterback so much is the fact that 2 3 and outs, that doesn't give your defense any time to to rest. I understand they gave up 5 yards per carry on the ground. They were giving up a lot over the middle, but if your offense is doing something, they only gave up 17 points to this team. And I did not think I did not think they were terrible. Sure, there was mistakes. Witherspoon made that mistake. He needs to go up and like Mike Tomlin said, play above eye level. You could tell that he is going to get reamed out. But was the defense anything that was just horrible where you thought, oh man, they've got to make some changes? No, man, when you're out there and you're tired and you're trying to breathe and you don't have help, that's what the problem is. And then also about Mac Jones, he had time to order a souffle back there. He had all the time in the world. I would have liked the referees to call some of those false start penalties because it seemed very egregious to me. And there's always some missed holds in those games, but still, the offensive line did the job for the New England Patriots. But I don't think the Steelers defense lost this game. I thought they were put in a very precarious position.
Yeah, this is one of those things where You never think. So you bring up Ahkello Witherspoon. I'm glad you did. You never think that a play like that in that moment is going to be the back-breaking play. I mean, my gosh, what do you always say? Like the rule of 20, you keep a team off of 20, you expect your offense to be able to score 20 points. And you provided a turnover in Minkah Fitzpatrick's interception. So you get a takeaway. And that one play in the first half, it seems like it comes back and haunts you because the offense can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, and I'm sure that it puts an onus on every single player and every single play to have to play out of their minds. And that's something that has been a narrative for the entire season was, okay, this defense could be really good, but are they good enough to carry this team the entire season? That's going to be exhausting. It's going to be exhausting if you don't have an offense that can go out and get you at least a couple wins a couple times. And so that's going to be something to note. I do want to get this $10 tip out there because we had missed it. My West Virginia buddy, Andrew Palladino, gives us $10. He said, we have backup quarterbacks, but unfortunately no backup offensive coordinator. Mitch looked bad, but Canada's play calling certainly didn't help. Which was worse in your all's opinion? Thanks for the tip, Andrew. We'll answer the question. Which was worse, quarterback or play caller? Dave, what do you think?
Sometimes that's hard to tell.
Yeah.
You know, that's a difficult one to try to tell, because if the quarterback's constantly making the plays and the plays just look that bad, so the answer's got to be both. It's almost got to be both, because if not, one would stand out more than the other. So significantly. So that's the best I can do. I hope that's not too much of a Dave answer.
It's perfect. It's right on par for your Dave answers. Bryan, what about you?
Players were open. Matt Canada did not give them the 3 and outs. If you go ahead and if you convert, Mitch was making the mistakes in this game more egregiously than Matt Canada. Everybody wants to go after Canada, and that's fine. But when it starts to work, he's a genius. But you don't have the quarterback to make it work right now.
I'm going to go quarterback as well. So let's get to a couple other super chats here. Wilson Pavlik is another $4.99. He said Minkah is making a case for Defensive Player of the Year. The defensive effort should have been enough to win, even with Spoon's multiple mistakes. The D was solid, even at the end. I can't disagree with that statement. I really can't. Even the part about Minkah Fitzpatrick, the guy is putting him, I mean, he's averaging an interception a game at this point. So that's a pretty good average. We'll see how that plays out. Snoopy McQueen gives us $5. Says Tomlin should be fired. Oh boy, for bringing the offensive coordinator back. He's the worst OC in the league for the last 3 seasons. Tomlin has not won a playoff in 5 years. Fired. Okay. There's always the fire Tomlin crowd. Thank you for the tip.
Can we put someone in timeout with a first super chat?
No, I mean, hey, unlike what the Yins boys say, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And
even if they're bad, right?
Even if they're bad. That's my theory. We all have our opinions. And
no, but I will. It's not that it's not a question worth at least pondering, but not to take it to that extreme. You have to want to ask yourself, what is the relationship between Mike Tomlin and Matt Canada, and how much is Tomlin really satisfied with his offensive coordinator at this point? And guess what? Matt Canada has not been the offensive coordinator for the Steelers for 3 years. He has been for literally 20 games, including the postseason.
Yeah.
So also remember that. So you can't. I mean, I'm not saying I agree that it's good and it's working, but at the same time, taking it to that extreme is just, let's fire the one of the greatest coaches ever because he doesn't have the right coordinator. No, just realize you need to fix the problem and fix the problem.
Well, you just said take it to that extreme. It is just that. It's an extreme. So, okay, Bryan, anything to add?
No.
Perfect. Okay, let's. The secondary, I do think it's worth noting that they did get another takeaway. Minkah Fitzpatrick takes the football away, and again, it's a sequence here, and this is going to be a good segue into our special teams talk. It was a sequence of events that took place. So if you think about it, I believe it was a 3rd and 7. Mac Jones throws a ball that it hits Cam Sutton almost directly between the 2 and the 0 on his jersey, and he drops it. Now, you're thinking, okay, well, that would have been fantastic if he intercepts that pass, but at least they force a punt. The next punt, the next play, Gunnar Olszewski takes it off his face mask, turnover, then a personal foul penalty moves the ball to the 10-yard line. 3 plays later, Damian Harrison plunges into the end zone, and from that moment on, at least to me, it felt like this game was over. There's no way the Steelers are going to be able to come back. Yeah, they stayed relevant in the game, but it was that sequence of events. You have to make plays when they're presented to you. Cam Sutton didn't. Gunnar Olszewski certainly didn't. And let's talk about the special teams. Gunnar Olszewski was one of 2 turnovers by the Steelers. Trubisky had an interception. We mentioned that earlier. In that one, the Gunnar Olszewski fumble was really, really poor timing. Chris Boswell was 2 for 2 from field goals. His long was 52. And Presley Hartman had 4 punts, 207 yards total, an average of 51.8. He did have a touchback, a long of 69 yards, but a little inconsistent at times. Dave, what do you think about the special team effort?
All but one play.
Yeah.
But you can't take that one away because it's the one that takes it from being a very nice day down to nothing. There's another one. When Big Press had 2 big booming punts to start off, you're like, wow, man, my goodness. But when he was backed up and they needed it the most, 40.
Yeah.
So where then they got, I can't believe the Steelers did not surrender 3 points. The defense did not surrender 3 points in that drive. The offense was held to a 3-and-out. They got only a 40-yard punt with a 5-yard return, and they had it at midfield. The defense forces the 3-and-out. Okay. And then they get the ball back at the 20, and it's another 3-and-out, and that's the last time they touched the ball. So yes, even though that was the one spot where you needed the best punt of the day from Marvin, and it's when you got the worst, it ultimately the defense bailed them out. But the other part where special teams came up short, that put the defense in a really bad situation, not just at the 20 and then the penalty on top of it, putting the ball at the 10. It was not good. Not good.
Bryan, thoughts on special teams?
My thoughts on the special teams are they made a very big mistake. I didn't see anything else. I agree with Dave on the Presley Harvin punt. In fact, there's an APB out on Dave for stealing my thunder, because I was all ready to talk about that. But, that's still, he mentioned something in that whole sequence. Jeff, you said that you felt like the game was lost there. I didn't feel the game was lost, but one of the reasons you must have felt the game was lost is you didn't have trust in the offense and the quarterback to move him down the field.
Right. And
so when I made a comment about Mitch Trubisky losing this game, I like Mitch Trubisky, I don't have a problem, but I'm going to be flat out in saying that he lost this game. And someone said, no, bad special teams lost this game. That was one play. Next thing you know, instead of 17-6, it's 17-14. And they have basically a whole quarter to come back and win that game on offense. And they touch the ball and they have the ball for 2 minutes and 41 seconds in that final half of that final quarter. So with that, yeah, you could say the special teams lost the game, but they don't. That's a huge play. They lost 7 points on that play. Sure. But they still had so many opportunities to win that game. They did not take advantage.
That's why all 3 phases of the football team matter, because they're really all interconnected. The special teams can't give up that kind of play when they're all trying to carry the offense. That's what in essence, that's what you're trying to say, right, Bryan?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they could have overcome that gap.
The thing is, yes. But when you already realize that one part of your team, the offense, is what you're having to overcome anyway, the other 2 have to be perfect. And that's a problem.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is what we're talking about now. I will always say this. It is something that I remember hearing probably, I don't know when it was. Joe Gibbs, Hall of Fame coach of the Washington Redskins, once said that a football game in its entirety can be boiled down to 4 to 5 plays. You win those 4 to 5 plays, you win the game. You don't make those 4 to 5 plays, you could end up losing the game. Think about the key plays that were made in this game and when they happened, and the Steelers didn't make those plays today. Whether it was Akello Witherspoon getting mossed by Nelson Aguilar at the end of the half. You think about Gunnar Olszewski muffing the punt and then them getting the ball at the 10-yard line and them scoring a touchdown. You think about Mitch Trubisky wasting time at the end of the half and not throwing the ball away. These are key moments. And what this all equates to is the Steelers are a very fragile team right now. You cannot make too many mistakes. They're not a team that can just get away with it. Think about what we saw on Thursday night. You saw the Chargers and Chiefs with that offensive firepower, just boom, 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 just moving the ball, because if you make a mistake, that's okay. We'll make up for it. The Steelers are not making up for it, at least not right now, and that's a problem. So I want to get this super chat up here. Snoopy McQueen responds, says, another $5 tip. Thank you, Snoop. Tomlin's not winning playoffs or Super Bowls. He's not getting the job done. The offensive coordinator in his third season with the same problems. Tomlin brought him back. Remember, Snoop,
it's not his
the Roonies have a say in that as well. They can hire.
He was the quarterback's coach the first season he was with the Steelers. He's one full season as offensive coordinator. I'm not saying I disagree that he's not doing a very good job right now, but let's at least get the facts right.
So, okay. Let's do final thoughts. We are all going to have a myriad of topics to talk about this week. I already said this in case you joined us late. You need to follow us on our audio platform so that you're getting all of our podcasts, not just those that are simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. Go to anywhere where you get your podcasts and search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. You can subscribe, follow. You'll get Dave's Stat Geek, Brian's Bad Language, My Let's Ride every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a lot of other shows that are only on that platform. But let's do final thoughts. Dave, we'll start with you.
Final thoughts, man. Even it wasn't very good at the end when you're like, man, they held the ball. The Patriots held the ball for like the last 6.5 minutes. The defense couldn't make the stops and everything else. That's true. But even if they did, who knows how it would have played out? I mean, did you really think that the offense was going to come out and if only they would have touched it one more time, they would have made the plays this time. You know what? Yes, maybe they would have, but why don't you make it on the drive before or the one before that? I still can't figure out. They're like, well, why aren't the Steelers throwing the ball deep and in the middle? Is it the play calls or is it the quarterback decision? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure because, you know, the secondary on defense and the wide receivers on offense, that's my weak spot. I'm more about the offensive line of the running game. It's not enough to get it done. You could lay it all out on so many things. It's almost like the game plan was set up for the Steelers to have to cover for their offensive line being weak. And I didn't feel that the offensive line was the weakness. So the execution isn't there, whether it's on the player, the coach, whatever. That's all got to come together for the execution on offense. And I'm laying this on the offense. I mean, you hold a team to 17 points. But I will say this. My brother and I joke around all the time on our Scobro show about the Steelers don't live in their fears unless it's the postseason. We like to throw that in there, unless it's the postseason. You know what? I've got another one. The Steelers don't live in their fears unless it's against Bill Belichick. It's almost like they were trying to. This was my I'm going to say it for the 17th time. It feels like they were trying to react to the great Bill Belichick and what he put forth on the field. You know what? Have confidence in yourself and confidence in what you can do, and go out there and make the great Bill Belichick to react to you. You know, don't wrap your defense around what they might do, or your offensive. Well, what are they giving us? Go out there. It's the killer mentality. I want to see the killer mentality, and I did not see that today.
Occam's Ox gives us $1.99, says I'll sum this game up into one word: gutless. Yeah, I'm not gonna. What can you say, Brian? Final thoughts. Go ahead.
Man, I'm just a broken record today. You know, blame who you want. You could blame the offensive coordinator. You could blame, the special teams in this game. You could blame the quarterback, but it wasn't good enough on offense, and that's going to continue to be a trend unless you figure that out. Who are these players frustrated with? That's my question. Who's Najee Harris frustrated? He looked visibly frustrated. George Pickens looked frustrated. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson looked frustrated. The question is, who are they frustrated at? I don't really think, in my mind, I don't think they're frustrated with the play calling because they feel that they're open and they're not getting looks. So that makes me believe that it's a quarterback problem. And that's going to continue to be my opinion. But those who want to fire Canada, that's fine. But they're going to go through the progressions with Canada, just like they went through the progressions with Randy Land, just like they're going to go through the progressions with Mitch Trubisky before they make that change. the guys at the top go through progressions, and it's not good enough for us fans sometimes.
I am a guy that likes to always know. I root for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't root for individual players. I want them to succeed. I do have favorites. We all do. I've always said that I want to look at the long-term success of this team. And so when I look at this team, I want to know that the long-term success is secure with the quarterback position. And when I say that, that is what I primarily am speaking about when I want to see Kenny Pickett in the game. If at worst, he gets experience and as year 2 could then be ratcheted up as him being the guy. I'm not forcing the issue. I want to see it. Fans want to see it. They want to see if the next guy is that guy on the sideline, number 8. If the next guy is the guy that they drafted number 20th overall in this last year's draft, the guy that was the first quarterback taken. That's what we all want to see. And so I'm not expecting that to happen this week. But if it looks this way again, I think that it's got to happen soon. And that's where we are right now. That's where this team is. It's the defense, good, borderline great. Offense, what's holding it back? We'll see. All right, that does it for us. We are done post-game show. Definitely going to be a different schedule coming up this week, but we will be back. Actually, no, the Yins boys are doing the post-game show next Thursday, and that's going to be Greg Benevent. That's going to be Kyle Christ. They're going to have the post-game show for you. We are going to be getting all the stuff done that we have to for the Behind the Steel Curtain website, things like that. So make sure you check out Kyle and Greg and the post-game show after the game on Thursday night. But that's a wrap. 17-14 Steelers lose in week 2. We will see you next time. Take it easy.